In this example, we're going to look at using rules in algebra, and we're going to use a flowchart to come up with this rule. So what we're going to do is look at the table. We've got two examples here, A and B. It says draw a flowchart, write the rule using algebra, and then complete the given table of values. So the first thing to do is to look at what the rule is that we're given. So it says here y is equal to x divided by 4. So I'm going to write my rule first, which is y is equal to x divided by 4. Or if you want to write that properly with the algebra, you would say y equals x divided by 4, like that. So that's our rule done. That's the first part. The next part is we're going to create a flowchart. Now a flowchart is going to help us to fill in the table of values that we have. And the way a flowchart works is we're going to start with x, and we're going to talk about what we do to x to end up with y. So what we do is we start with the variable that's on the right side of the equation. We're going to work our way to the left side. So our little flowchart is going to have little boxes. So we start with x, and the question is, what do we do with x? Well, we take x and we divide it by 4. So our flowchart has x in a box, and we divide that by 4, and that gives us y. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually look at how we can go backwards and forwards later on when we solve equations, but this is just a very simple flowchart that tells us what to do. So if we wanted to use this flowchart to help us to solve this problem, or to fill in this table, what we'd look at is we'd say, okay, for example, if x is 20, we need to divide that by 4 to give us the y value, and we know that 20 divided by 4 is 5. So that would mean that y is 5, so that goes in this box. So all we need to do each time we go through this table is we just need to use our flowchart, which tells us to divide by 4. So 16 divided by 4 is 4, 4 divided by 4 is 1, 12 divided by 4 is 3, and 10 divided by 4 is a little bit tricky. So if we actually look at that, you have 10 is the x divided by 4. Now it's not a really nice number. It's actually 10 divided by 4 because it doesn't turn into anything particularly nice. So we'll write that as 10 divided by 4 as a fraction. Some of you might have written that as 5 over 2 because it's simplified, which is really great as well. So we filled in the first table. We're going to do the same for the second example here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to write down the rule. So it says 2 is added to the product of x and 5 to get y. So we're going to get y ultimately, that's that bit done. We have this product going on. Remember, product means multiply of x and 5. So we've got a product of x and 5. So that's that bit done. And 2 is added to that. So we would add 2 onto that. Or if you want to write this using our algebra rules, remember that the number always goes first. So 5 times x plus 2 would be our rule. Or if you want to do it again with getting rid of the multiply signs, it would be just 5x plus 2. So that would be our rule. I'm going to put a little box around that and a box around our rule over here too. Okay, now the next part of this is to create a flowchart. This is a bit more interesting, this flowchart, than the other one we did. So we start with x. Now what happens to x? Well, the first thing that happens is whatever is closest to x. Can you see that the 5 is right next to the x? So the 5 is the first thing that happens. What is that 5 doing? It's multiplying. 5 times x. That gives us 5x. So that's that part of the equation. The next thing that happens is we add 2 plus 2. So that is going to give us y. So that's how we go through our flowchart. Tells us what to do, how to get from x to y. Now we're going to use that flowchart to help us with the problem. So let's do, for an example, I'll just put it on the side here. Let's say what happens when x equals 2. We're going to use the flowchart. So where x was, I'm going to pop a 2 in there. 2 times 5 is 10. The next part of my flowchart is plus 2. 10 plus 2 is 12. So we know that's going to be 12. And we can do the same thing each time for each of these levels. So multiply by 5 and add 2. So 5 times 5 is 25, plus 2 is 27. And it's a great idea too, you could do all your working for these, use a flowchart each time so you can really see what's happening. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 is 17. And the other one here that's interesting is the last one. This one has a 0 in it. So you can see what happens with this one. When we put 0 in our little box for x, we've got 0. 0 times 5 is still 0. Plus 2, 0 plus 2 is 2. So the flowchart really helps you to be able to see what's going on with a rule. So I guess for me the most important thing really is putting together your flowchart just so you can see the steps that you're doing each time to go from x to y.